What's up, guys? Welcome back to NEWZ. Yesterday, Sony released their Q3 earnings as well as some of their guidance going into next fiscal year, and it seems like this has all left Sony in a very precarious situation, which we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about some of the Q&A from Sony's investors briefing that seems to indicate that they might be exploring quite a bit more outside of just their PlayStation console. And we have Microsoft coming up later on today with their podcast to discuss the future vision of Xbox, and it appears they continue to double down on Xbox everywhere in some of these internal meetings. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, for all members to the channel, NEWZ is available early and ad-free. If you want to learn more about that, check the join button down below this video. I'm going to start today with Sea of Thieves that put out an interesting poem, maybe a bit of a tease for what's to come over on X, which we can see this posted up. Where they say rowboats are red and sometimes they're blue, other times they're green. Occasionally they can be white. Wait, where were we going with this? Yeah, look, the rumors are out there that Sea of Thieves appears to be headed to PlayStation, and that alongside of Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, these are ones that have come up. And I believe Sea of Thieves will be going to PlayStation. It's a live service title that's been very successful for Microsoft, but if they continue to add on to the number of monthly active users they have for it and can expand on the PlayStation, where obviously there is a large market in general, why not? At least that's their thought process right now. So, yeah, it seems to me like maybe even later on today, Microsoft named Sea of Thieves as one of the few titles for now that will be making the multi-platform jump. Also, we do have Mario vs. Donkey Kong out this Friday. Our reviews did go live yesterday. We can see this over on Metacritic. Currently sitting at a 77, which is, yeah, I guess that's about right. It stays very, very true in terms of the remake to the Game Boy Advance version of this game. And in fact, for some places, that was kind of a negative. But this is on 67 critic reviews. There was at least one perfect 100 score that was from Player 2. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have Digital Trends with a 60, mostly pointing towards, they say, warm nostalgia for the Game Boy Advance era for this one. And many of the other reviews did point out, hey, you know, it's a good puzzle game. It also has some additional content. It has a co-op mode. But keep in mind, this is very much the Game Boy Advance game, just kind of spruced up with some more modernized controls, obviously some of the visuals and stuff, but $50, and it is a just about complete remake of a Game Boy Advance game. And to be fair, right now, for me anyway, there's a lot of stuff coming up and stuff right now that I'm playing, and this is kind of a game that I'm going to be skipping for now, but might come back to later, as I'm sure this is a title from Nintendo that probably will be put on sale in the future, unlike some of their big AAA, you could say, first-party games that tend to stay at that roof of $60 or even $70 for quite a while. This is one I wouldn't be shocked if it ended up in a Nintendo Selects or something down the line. But hey, if you're excited for it, seems like at least it's a high-quality puzzle game, and that's out this Friday. Oh, and we did have that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth demo that came out. We do have a second part of the demo coming up next week. But there was one complaint with this, one major one anyway, that everyone seemed to agree on. That's the performance mode looked incredibly blurry. Well, we can see this is posted up over on their official X account. So they say the update to the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth demo scheduled for February 21st will apply improvements to the visual quality when selecting performance mode from the graphics options. This will also be applied to the full game. So we were kind of going over the idea that, okay, maybe the demo is an older build or just an unoptimized build in terms of the visual quality. We'll see when this update goes through, and I might actually go back and capture some footage from the current build right now that we have the demo with performance mode, and then compare it after the update. Because if they can at least get the performance mode to look at least somewhat reasonable, that's probably the way to go, because the quality mode certainly had some frame rate issues that were very noticeable. It's kind of hard to pick either one. You either had one side that it was a very blurry image, or the other that was a pretty unstable experience in terms of frame rate. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony and their Q3 earnings report that really puts them in a very precarious situation for the PlayStation 5, as it's now reached its midway point through its life cycle, which even that statement started a whole discourse online, but to me it kind of makes sense. But we'll we'll get to that one. Let's start, though, with some of the numbers here. And over on Reset Era, they do a very good job with this chaos to kind of put all this in different charts and bar graphs to visualize it a bit more. So we'll put a few of those up here as we go along. But in terms of revenue, this is the highest gross revenue recorded in a Q3 for Sony with PlayStation at $10.8 billion. This is like their gaming and network sector, but basically made up of just PlayStation, really. Operating income, however, despite this being the highest recorded in terms of just gross revenue, operating income, or their take-home, the profit, is down 25% compared to last year. And they pointed out a few things. One is due to higher costs in general across the board, as well as just promotions that they were running on the PlayStation 5, because they were doing everything possible to try to move PlayStation 5 consoles out to the market. And this ended up culminating with 8.2 million systems that sold over that holiday period. Again, October, November, December. That's up 15% year over year. Okay, so we're going in the right direction there. PS5 has now sold 16.4 million units for the current fiscal year. They have one more quarter that we're in right now. It'll end really on March 31st. But again, we'll get back to that in a second. 89.7 million units of software sold. That's up 4% year over year. And Spider-Man 2 has now passed 10 million copies sold. So good stuff there for Spider-Man 2. That is as of December 31st. So keep that in mind. I mean, we had the end of October and then November and December. That's pretty quick for a PS5 only title there. Now, the PS5 has sold 54.8 million units. That is actually trailing the PS4 when you launch alignment by about 2.3 million systems. And because Sony wasn't able to move the number of PS5s they were expecting, they've actually lowered their original 25 million unit forecast for this fiscal year down to 21 million. And I do wonder if they're even going to get to that. It's going to be close either way. They do have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I think is going to be the big mover for consoles in this current fiscal quarter. But still, going down from 25 to 21 million, that's not a small reduction in forecast. That's 4 million units. That's quite a bit. And at this point, I got to say, I don't know if they're going to outsell the PS4 with the PS5 currently in its trajectory, as they're also expecting sales to now start to decline for the PS5 because they say they're in the latter half of the system's life. If we can see, this is posted up. This is part of their investors briefing that they released. It's an entire pamphlet, essentially, in a PDF that goes over a lot of the numbers and different things that they're expecting and things that happened. But as part of that, on page 7, they say regarding the PS5 hardware, which will enter its 5th year since launch, partially due to its entering the latter half of the console cycle, we aim to optimize sales with a greater emphasis on the balance with profit. So we anticipate a gradual decline. Now, obviously, it would be in the latter half, considering, what do we think out of the PS5? A 7-year cycle before we start talking about the PS6? Well, that'd be 2027. We're about to be 3.5 years into the current PS5's life. So, yeah, that means we probably have another 3.5 to 4 years out of the PS5. I think it's because the initial translation was later stages. It was like, whoa, hold on, we're like done with the PS5? No, we still have many years ahead of us for this hardware right now. And in fact, I mean, this lines up with what we figured we would have with the PS5. I think it was more just a mistranslation and really threw off the internet there. But this part right here, this threw up some alarm bells. It says, regarding first-party software, we aim to continue to focus on producing high-quality works and developing live service games, but while major projects are currently under development, we do not plan to release any new major existing franchise titles next fiscal year, like God of War Ragnarok and Marvel's Spider-Man, which, that's, So, there's a couple ways you can read this. Don't expect, as they mentioned, a God of War, a Spider-Man, a new Last of Us. Think of all of the well-known franchises. You're not going to get a sequel or anything in that franchise. But that means you will probably see new intellectual properties. For example, Concord is coming out this year, at least that Sony has communicated to us in some of their recent trailers, just going over their roadmap for 2024. Fair Games, I think that makes it out to start off 2025. But what they're saying here next fiscal year means that we won't be seeing any of those established intellectual properties, major AAA releases, until the earliest, April 2025. So here's hoping they have what they would consider to be smaller AA style games like A new Astrobot game has continued to be rumored, and it actually came up again. I believe Jeff Grubb mentioned that. That would fall in the AA category, I guess. Even if it's a sizable 3D platformer, it's not Last of Us Part 3 or nothing like that. But it does make me wonder about Ghost of Tsushima 2, because I feel like that would fall in line with the idea of a major release and now an established franchise. So we'll see if maybe Naughty Dog or Sony Santa Monica or Blue Point or something does have a new intellectual property ready to go. But still, they haven't announced anything like that yet. And would Sony really announce and then release something 4 or 5 months later? I don't think so. I mean, again, possible, yes, but I don't think it's anything major in terms of new intellectual properties. So I think Sony is indeed continuing to lean on third-party games like we're seeing right now with Final Fantasy. We have Stellar Blade. I think that's kind of the path for them right now. And it's just game development taking longer and longer and longer, and it's certainly something that Sony is dealing with currently that also kind of leans into the next topic, this coming from the Q&A. Next up, let's talk about Hiroki Totoki's comments, who is the CFO and now standing in as the head of PlayStation. Of course, Jim Ryan is retiring. He's kind of hanging out just kind of as the transitional period, but here pretty soon he'll be on his way out, I guess, to full-on retirement. But Hiroki Totoki had some comments that have gone back and forth online as to what exactly Sony is planning here. But let's take a look. This post up. This is transcribed by Eurogamer from the conference call, where he says, in the past, as you all know, we wanted to popularize our console, and the first-party title's main purpose was to make the console popular. Of course, right now we're referring to PS5, but in the past, PS4, PS3, etc. It is true, but there is a synergy to it. So if you have strong first-party content, not only with our console, but also other platforms like computers, a first party can be grown with multi-platform. And that can help operating profit to improve. So that is another one we want to proactively work on. I personally think there are opportunities out there for improvement of margins. So I would like to go aggressive in improving our margin performance. So we talked about before how Tim Stewart at Microsoft is a numbers guy. Well, Hiroki Totoki, the CFO, is a numbers guy, now taking over for Jim Ryan, looking around, going, wow, okay, our operating profit is coming kind of close here, guys. We've made a ton of gross revenue, but it's costing us a lot of money to make that revenue. What do? Can we find more customers to sell these games to? Because look at what Helldivers 2 is doing right now after releasing day-and-date PS5 and PC. Yes, that is part of their live service initiative, but I think now going forward, live service games, they're just releasing day-and-date PS5 and PC. But the question continues to remain, will they attempt that with a full single-player experience? See, in the past, their strategy has been, we're going to release this on the PS5, maybe a year or two later, okay, it's going to show up on the PC, and we'll double dip. But while they have seen results, it hasn't been incredible amounts of money coming in, and I almost wonder if they're looking around thinking, hey, if we put this new IP from Naughty Dog that's going to come out, this sci-fi game, we'll say, on PS5 and PC day one, would we make twice the amount of money? I mean, maybe. Helldivers 2 has kind of proven that you might. So I think they're going to attempt this. A while ago I said, here's the roadmap. They're going to try it with some later releases. Then they're going to try it with a live service game day and date. And if they see success there, they'll try it with a single-player game day and date. And they'll kind of measure and see how things go. And if it works out, I think Sony is going to move into a position where PS5 games come out day and date, PS6 games even, and then they also come out PC. It doesn't matter if it's single-player, multiplayer, any of that, because they have to find more people to sell these games to. That's just kind of the way it's going with these budgets. Either they cut back on the games with how much money they're dumping in, and they maybe shrink some of the scope around these titles, or they continue to expand outwards. I don't know if they would really bother to go to Xbox, because I think they themselves kind of doubt how many copies they can sell in an environment with Game Pass existing on the platform. But certainly, when it comes to really any of their games, I think PC is right there, and it's certainly an avenue that I think they're going to explore, as Hiroki Totoki says, aggressively. So keep an eye on that one. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft, as they do have their event coming up later on this afternoon. Of course, part of their Xbox podcast, where apparently Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, Sarah Bond are all going to sit down and talk about the future vision of Xbox. Well, there have been internal meetings going on, and I wanted to go over one in particular, as they not only use Power World to sort of showcase their plans, but once again double down on the idea of Xbox just being anywhere. We can see this posted up, though. This was over on Inverse, who had the story, saying images of Power World were shown across screens on February 6th at an internal Xbox town hall that Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer and Xbox President Sarah Bond held with employees. Sarah Bond says, every screen is an Xbox, end quote. Bond said in the internal meeting, according to multiple sources who requested anonymity as they were not authorized to speak to the media, Bond spoke extensively about Xbox strategy of existing on multiple kinds of devices and greater ambitions of becoming the #1 cross-platform gaming company. Really, this just reinforces what we kind of already know and what we figure we're going to hear at this podcast later on today, and that's that, yes, they are going to be exploring the other systems, that being PlayStation and Switch, as, of course, there is a large user base there that they can most likely leverage to just get more sales. Hi-Fi Rush, I think, is going to do very, very well if they do push it out on both PlayStation and Switch. Still kind of up in the air on that one, but like Pentiment, yeah, I think that's going to be on Switch, and I don't know how well it's going to do, but there are probably people who are at least curious about it and maybe check it out from there. But just going forward in the future, yeah, I think Xbox, the console will still exist. Hardware will be around. Microsoft will, I think, play around with maybe the idea of a hybrid system, a handheld. I think that's a great avenue for them to go down. As we see on Sony's side, the box, like the console box, I do wonder if that market is kind of stagnating right now. As again, Sony tracking behind the PS4, Microsoft on the Xbox Series tracking behind the Xbox One. Maybe that hybrid nature of like a system and the convenience that it offers is kind of winning out right now. So possible that might be something they end up doing with their next generation platform. But in the meantime, yeah, I think you're going to see more and more of these games from Microsoft go to basically any screen or any platform they can get it on. And I am curious if they announce a big title like Indiana Jones maybe later on today. So let's keep an eye out for it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium, as we did have the catalog of games for the month of February revealed. And I got to say, it looks really good. Let's head over here, though. This is over on PlayStation Blog. These games will go live on the PlayStation subscription service tiers starting February 20th. And at the top, we have Need for Speed Unbound. This will be Extra and Premium as we're going through here. Then we also have The Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition. Tales of Arise. Awesome game, by the way. I feel like more people should be checking that game out. They did the DLC recently. I haven't had time to go through that, but the base game, a lot of fun. And we have Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Lego Worlds, Lego Jurassic World, Rogue Book, Rogue Lords, and Tales of Zestria. That one was kind of out of nowhere, but I guess we have Tales of Arise, so why not throw Tales of Zestria in there? Then moving to PlayStation Premium Classics, so we're going to go back to the PSP for this one. Resistance Retribution. Interesting. I have not played that one in about a long time. Of course, that has up rendering, rewind, quick save, custom video filters. And then we also have Jet Moto 2. This one's on the original PlayStation. So we had Jet Moto, now we have Jet Moto 2. Why not? And they're doing that thing where they're pretending like PS4 games count in this category. But hey, Tales of Symphonia Remastered wasn't the greatest when it came out for the kind of the version that we got, but it going into the subscription tier. And if you already have it, I recommend trying it out. You can also play it with up to 3 friends in local co-op mode. So kind of a unique experience in that case. And then check this out. Tales of Vesperia, which is an awesome game. So if you have not played that one I can fully recommend. Really, really good title there. So I'm looking up and down the list here. This is pretty good. You got a racer with Need for Speed Unbound, Tales of Arise, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and actually some pretty decent classic games. Although I would like to see them actually take a swing at a PS2 game and not one that was remastered for PS4 and they're going to pretend like it goes in there, like an actual PS2 game. But for now, hey, based on other months we've seen, I think this one's pretty good. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, do you think the PS5 will end up outselling the PS4? 69% nice, say no. 31% say yes. Yeah, I don't think it's going to outsell the PS4. After seeing their more recent report, well, 25 million was a very optimistic forecast, right? I think they were kind of basing it on, all right, well, we had those supply shortages earlier on, and maybe there were people there who were just holding out, and they'll show up here in the fiscal year that we're in now, basically the third year for the PS5 as we work to close out the holidays, and they didn't. So revised out 21 million. still very, very good for a system that costs anywhere from 400, well, 450 now to 500. But I don't think it's going to reach that 116 or so million the PS4 is sitting at, which that's going to be a concern for Sony. They're going to look around and say, oh, are we declining in popularity and number of systems we're able to sell at this time? Because that is where you start getting the mindset of, we do have to start looking outside of PlayStation because the games aren't getting cheaper, and now we're selling less consoles than a generation before, so now what? And we'll finish up with the comments of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Smart. It says, in terms of past history, Pokemon Company is always late to the next system. The year the 3DS released, they launched Black and White on DS. The year the Switch released, they did Ultra Sun and Moon on 3DS. I don't expect them to be launching a mainline Pokemon game for Switch 2 in year one. Here's the interesting part about all of this. Technically, they could do it if they take advantage of the enhancement stuff that's being rumored right now. Let's say they can release it as a Switch game, but then there's also an enhancement patch you can download if you have the new hardware. Let's say they do that this holiday or next holiday or something, right? As you're saying, they're maybe a year behind or something with the new hardware. That's, I feel like, something they could pull off, and maybe they go back and do it with Scarlet and Violet, and look at that. The patch all along was brand new hardware. You just got to upgrade to the $400 system, and Scarlet and Violet is going to work fine then. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for NewsWave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we've talked about here today. There's Sony's recent financial briefing and Q&A with them discussing now more potential for their games on PC. Do you think we're heading towards that first big single-player experience from Sony launching on console and PC day one? And then also, what about Xbox? They talk about Xbox going anywhere there's a screen. How many games do you think they're going to talk about later on today when it comes to multi-platform access? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.